In the last episode, we ended on a cliffhanger. My tent and supplies were on fire, and I did not know if my trip was over. Before we get into what happens next, help us grow our podcast by following us and hitting the like and subscribe button. Now let's get into where the fire takes us. I've set up my tent in this little grandma's front yard after she's given me permission. I'm ready to just relax. I'm ready for the day to be over. I've got my sleeping bag all set up. I broke out my journal so I could write about the day, recap on everything that had happened. I was just really looking forward to some good food, warm food, and just relaxation. I break out my camping stove. I'm ready to cook my favorite meal. And this meal became the most favorite I had throughout the whole trip. It was instant mashed potatoes, instant rice, and the foil pack of tuna. And I would cook that and get it all mixed up. And it was amazing. I would fix enough to have some for dinner that night, and then I'd have some leftovers for breakfast in the morning. But this particular night, as I'm getting prepped to cook my dinner, I've got my camp stove out. I light it, getting ready to start cooking. I look over and the stove is on fire. My tent is on fire. Some supplies is on fire. And even some of my clothing on my right arm was on fire. Trying to get everything put out and keep from getting burned. And my world is just falling apart really, really quick. Fortunately, it wasn't as big as I thought it was. And I was able to put it out, but I couldn't help but think that my trip is over. This isn't going to pan out the way I thought it was going to. But after taking care of the fire, getting in my sleeping bag, writing in my journal, and just going to sleep and not acting on the emotions of what had just happened. And so as the next morning comes, I'm awoken extremely early, earlier than I really wanted to be, about 4 o'clock in the morning on this little farm out in the middle of nowhere in the deserts of Utah. A generator turns on, starts to power up this little farm. The grandmother and her husband, they're starting to work the property. They're starting to work their cattle. I'm hearing the cattle, the noise of them and the chickens and all the things. And so I knew it was time to just get up and get going. And as I'm packing up the tent and I'm getting all of my supplies back into my bicycle trailer and I'm getting going, I couldn't help but to reflect on what happened that night of the tent catching on fire and my clothing and the supplies catching on fire. And I just felt like my safe place was just, it no longer was my safe place. Even though a tent is not necessarily the safest thing, it created a safe place for me. It created a place that I looked forward to. It created that place where I longed for, and I looked forward to ending my day in my tent. And so I ask, have you ever had that safe place destroyed? Have you ever gone through something that you look forward to and it's taken from you? You're not able to enjoy it. You don't know what to do. I thought about this. The reason for this whole trip was to gain control of my life, to figure things out so I can get control and shift from a place of frustration and disappointment and being lost to a place of gaining control of my life and being better and feeling gratitude and thankfulness for my life. But in being intentional to create a place to gain control, I was losing control. And so that next day, I ride about 25 miles back into this town. And I knew at that point, I had two options. I had the option of quitting, or I had the option of taking a break. And so I decided not to make decisions off of the emotions of what I had gone through, of the fire in the tent, of the temper tantrum I had with losing stuff on my bicycle as flat tires were very prevalent. And as I checked into that hotel and I got some food and I crawled into the bed to just lay down and rest, I couldn't help but to reflect on the pain that I was going through, but also look at it through the filter of pain is temporary and not to react on the emotions of what you're going through. Just sleep on it. So don't quit. Whatever you're going through, don't quit. Take some rest. Sleep on it. Take a break. Whatever it is, don't act on the disappointments, the frustrations, the lack of control, whatever that is, you fill in the blank. Don't quit. Don't get caught up in the emotions of your situation. Take a deep breath. Take a pause. Go check into a hotel. Go take a little vacation. Take a little break, whatever that means to you, so that you don't get caught up in the emotions and make a decision that you're going to regret. And that's what I did. I took that day and the next day to just take a break. I ate everything I could. I got some cheeseburgers for lunch and dinner, and I just fed myself. I was also replenishing all that energy. I was taking that well-needed break of recharging myself. I was getting some rest. I was taking naps. I was sleeping. I was doing everything I could to get ready. And also, as I was getting that rest, I was starting to long and look forward to getting back on the bike. I was looking forward to putting miles in between me and that place. And so after a day and a half of rest, I was back on the bike. I was recharged. I was ready. However, I didn't know what the next challenge was coming. I soon was into Colorado. The terrain is starting to change. We're going from desert to now the beauty of the mountains in Colorado, different landscape, but long mountain climbs, high mountains, 10 and 12 and 14,000 feet in elevation. And these climbs that would last 10, 15, 20 miles of climbing these roads that would just sweep from left to right as you would climb up to the top, only to descend within minutes, and then to do it again, to climb to the top of a mountain, to descend again. And as I would go through this day after day after day, the emotions and the pain of the climb would start to build. And I started reflecting back of one of the things that brought me to this broken place in my life. And that was the divorce I went through and the things that led up to this divorce. Early on in my life, when I got married and I built us a house and started having kids, I had the perfect life. I had the white picket looking family, the white picket looking house. Everything was just on the outside. It was perfect. I had a great wife. I had 2 beautiful children. I had a business. On the outside, it all looked put together. What I didn't realize was I truly wasn't the man. I wasn't the husband. I wasn't the person that my wife at the time was needing, that she was wanting, that she was longing for. Unfortunately, I just didn't really know it. I knew we were going through some hard times and we were having some struggles, but I didn't know that it was because I wasn't that person that she wanted and that she needed. I wasn't necessarily doing anything inappropriate, but I was putting my attention towards the business, and I would come home tired, exhausted, and I wouldn't really give her the attention and the desire of my time that she really wanted. And little by little, that was eroding away of our relationship. And although she was having her difficulties, we went through a miscarriage in between my son being born and my daughter being born. And that was eroding away at her and where she was at in life. And I didn't really know how to work through that and help her but ultimately it just kept building and kept in a subtle way destroying our relationship. And on one Friday evening, she asked me, Michael, you mind if I go out with a friend and have some drinks and just relax and enjoy the evening? And I was happy to watch the kids and play dad and be dad for them and enjoy our night. And so as the night progressed, I put the kids in bed. 9 o'clock came, 10 o'clock came, 11 o'clock came, and no word from my wife. And so I start to reach out to her to find out where she's at, when she's coming home, starting to get a little concerned. No word from her. I had no idea where she was at. And more, I was getting scared. Hour after hour kept ticking by. And I finally get in touch with her, and she had been drinking and had stated that she was at a specific location. And I just told her to stay there. I'm coming to pick you up. I was worried about her, and she encouraged me not to, but I decided to go anyhow. And so at 1 o'clock in the morning, I wake up my son, who at the time was 4, and my daughter, who was at the time, she was 3. Wake them up. I put them in the truck. They quickly fall back asleep as they're in my truck, and I go looking for her. I couldn't find her. I went to where she said she was at. I had no idea. And I'm broken. I'm crying. I'm trying to figure out where my wife is at. I got 2 kids in the back seat that are oblivious to what's going on. I finally get in touch with her, and I ask her where she's at, and I'm coming to get her, and she's like, I'm fine. And I knew that she was, and I just felt like she wasn't fine. And I was scared. I was scared for her. I was scared for the situation I was in. I was losing control. I couldn't take control of the situation at all. I went to the location she said she was at, and she was not there again. And all I knew to do was to go back home. And I'm on the phone with my brother at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and trying to get his advice. I'm just lost. I have no idea what to do. And so I go home. I put the kids back in bed. Another hour, another 2 hours goes by. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, she comes home. She was dropped off by someone, by a friend. And as I said earlier, she'd been drinking, and you have all the things that come along with the drinking. And so she wasn't feeling good. And I take her to the bedroom, I take her to the bathroom, and I'm keeping her hair out of her face as I'm just trying to clean things up and ultimately trying to get her back in bed. And regardless of what the last 6 hours I went through, all I could do at that point was just pick her up, carry her, and put her back in bed. And as I'm taking her shoes off, I've just completely lost control of the situation. I didn't know what to do. I take her shoes off, I get her tucked in, I put her in bed so she could go to sleep. But little by little, as time went on from that specific night, it just didn't get better. I was losing control, not knowing how to take control. But I had an obligation and a responsibility to my son. I had an obligation and a responsibility to my daughter, to my business, and to myself. And although if it wasn't for the fact that I had my 2 children, I probably would have taken my life. I was that broken. But during that time, I ended up going through a divorce. I did what I thought I could to restore the relationship, and it just wasn't going anywhere. And so now at this point, I am a father to a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old now. And I had one major responsibility, was to raise them, do the best I could being a single dad, and believe for the best. And at that time, I made a commitment to myself that when my son and my daughter are 18 years old, that they would truly look at me as their hero. And so I made it my sole purpose. I made it my objective to be their hero. And so as I'm reflecting over that, as I'm climbing this mountain, thinking about all of that, those things that had transpired throughout the early days of getting divorced and becoming a single dad and operating a business without my wife, as I was descending this next climb, long, strenuous climb up to the top of Lizard Head Pass, I was looking forward to finishing the day up at the top of Lizard Head Pass, setting up camp. And when I got there, what an amazing view. It was stunning. Just seeing the Colorado Rockies, the crisp, fresh air, just such a fulfillment after a long, hard day on the bicycle. Set up camp. I'd set the tent up, get my sleeping bag, get my journal out, get everything ready to end the night, do a little bit of checking on my bike and make sure the bike was in good condition for the next morning. But I was really looking forward to the descent the next day down into Telluride, Colorado. It was about a 15-mile descent. Knowing that I was going to go into Telluride, I was looking into the town and looking forward to just spending an afternoon just hanging out and maybe going to lunch and relaxing a little bit. So the next morning, I get up. It's early. It's about sunrise. And I start descending down from Lizard Head Pass into Telluride. It's about a 15-mile descent. It's just this sweeping, gradual descent down into Telluride. And it was just so refreshing that at that time of the morning, the air was just so crisp, that it was fresh. There wasn't a lot of cars out. There was no traffic up at the top of the climb. And just that feeling of the wind blowing through my face and over me was just so refreshing. But as I got closer into Telluride, the traffic started to pick up, and there was also some road construction going on. And so I just took it slower. I was just trying to be real cautious as I'm getting to the bottom of the mountain. However, towards about a mile or so before getting into Telluride, I approached this left turn, this left curve in the road. As I was moving towards my left into this curve, a car was coming towards me and veered off and crossed over the center line towards me. And so I just reacted and went over to my right. And when I did that, I got into a little bit of gravel, a little bit of sand. And at speed, it wasn't looking good. I was afraid I was going to fall. And so I stood up on the bike to just ride it out like it was a mountain bike. Having a bicycle trailer on a road bike, it didn't handle the same way like a mountain bike would. And very quickly, as I'm on that gravel and that sand, those two tires just start to slide out from underneath me. And all I knew is I'm approaching this part of the side of the hill, this embankment. I see it coming towards me. All I know as I approach this, is I lost control and everything went black. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks for listening. If you want to see more, follow us, hit the like and subscribe button, and remember, just keep pedaling.